In business news, global energy giants have suffered a big blow as climate activists and disgruntled shareholders succeed in efforts to reduce their carbon emissions. Company boards at Exxon and Chevron have caved in to dissident shareholders, while Royal Dutch Shell lost a landmark case. In the US, Exxon shareholders defied management to elect at least 2 new board members proposed by hedge funds, Engine Number One. The fund launched an activist campaign making climate change a central issue. It holds a stake in Exxon worth some $50 million, just a small fraction of Exxon's market cap today of nearly $250 billion. Over at Chevron, shareholders voted 61% in favor of a resolution calling for the company to cut its carbon emissions. The company said it would carefully consider the result. In the Netherlands, Green campaigners won a court battle in The Hague to force Shell to cut its carbon emissions by 45% in the next 10 years. The court also ruled that Shell is responsible for emissions from its customers and its suppliers. Well, despite the big win by Green activists against the oil majors, an expert we spoke to earlier says the success should not be a substitute for government action.
I think these are huge decisions on both sides of the Atlantic, huge events. If anything, the ones in the United States, I think, are more important because it shows that this immense groundswell of public support for more concerted action to deal with the challenge of climate change is not a European phenomenon only. This is taken hold very firmly here in the United States as well. That said, as big as these factors are, they're not a substitute for government action. This year we'll kick off, the UK will host the 26th annual climate conference. And world leaders have been getting together for 25 years to talk about doing something. And in that 25 years, global CO2 emissions have risen by 50%. And so while I think it is critical that we have more concerted action, I think, and companies have a key role to play, as do their investors, I think that's not a substitute for coordinated global government policy.
Amazon will acquire MGM Studios for more than $8 billion as it looks to cement its place among entertainment and streaming titans. The e-commerce giant says the financial value of the acquisition lies deep in the catalog of the content that MGM owns, with some 4,000 films and 17,000 TV shows to boost Amazon's film and TV division. This is the company's second largest acquisition ever, sitting behind the $13.7 billion purchase of Whole Foods more than 3 years ago. Amazon has ramped up its spending in a crowded streaming market as rivals like Disney, Netflix, and Apple continue to churn out original content. The firm spent $11 billion on video and music content across 2020, up from its 2019 spend. The severity of the global chip shortage has forced companies to find new ways to secure this crucial resource. Electric car maker Tesla is set to make advance payments in order to guarantee its orders in a tight supply market. They are in talks with chip suppliers in Taiwan, South Korea, and the US. Now, Tesla is also said to be actively considering buying its own semiconductor plant. The EV maker already has an engineering team that designs high-tech, high-end chips for autonomous driving. But analysts say the cost of such an investment would be excessive for Tesla. It could set the company back as much as $20 billion. Beyond the auto industry, other firms are also trying to navigate the global chip crunch through similar means. Cisco, for example, has put money in escrow to reserve its chips. 4 other companies last month also used advanced deposits to secure semiconductors from Taiwan's UMC. These dedicated buying agreements are a departure from the traditional business model of contract chip making. But chipmakers now concede contracting arrangements may have to change as demand for specialized and customized semiconductors increases. According to reports, the world's largest maker of memory chips, Samsung, has already dedicated some production lines to specific customers and is open to making similar arrangements with others. Well, that's it for business. Back to you.
Thank you. Now, he upended everything the world knew about black holes and defied doctors' predictions by living another 55 years before his death.
Being on a ventilator has not curbed my lifestyle.
We're talking about Professor Stephen Hawking. He is probably one of the most celebrated scientists in modern times. Now, some of his most prized papers and belongings will be on display. His office will be reconstructed in the British Science Museum next year. Selected items, including his wheelchair, will be on display. Cambridge University will be acquiring his scientific papers and journals, plus childhood letters and early, never-before-seen drafts. The University Library hopes to catalogue and digitise all 50 boxes of the documents and make them accessible to anyone in the world.
My father would be so pleased, and I think maybe at the same time just a tiny bit overwhelmed that he was going to form part of the story of history of science, that he was going to be alongside the great scientists, the people whose work he really admired.
Frog skin and fish scales can soon be used to repair human bones. Scientists at Singapore's Nanyang Technological University have developed a way to use the biomaterial instead of a patient's own tissues. It will also help tackle the problem of aquacultural waste. It is a first-of-its-kind study. The team used discarded bullfrog skin and fish scales to create the biomaterial. It acts as a scaffold for cells to multiply, leading to a formation of a new bone. Patients with jaw defects from trauma or cancer surgery may use this recovery method in a clinical setting in about 5 years' time. It could also be used for bone growth, such as dental implants.
The normal way of getting the collagen sources, and our in-house development method, we can actually save up to 40% of the time to get the same exact materials. So it's more than 40% of the shortening of the time frame to get our final product compared to the traditional methods.
Asia Now continues in the next hour. We'll be checking the top stories, including Australia's Victoria State entering a snap lockdown to tackle a fresh coronavirus cluster. And the two trains involved in a head-on collision in Malaysia are removed as officers clear and restore the tracks.
For exquisite living on the fringe of the city, Singapore Property Show presents coveted developments in the rest of Central Region. Exclusive addresses with amenities well within reach, yet away from the hustle and bustle of the city centre. Experience stunning 4D virtual tours of these properties and get expert advice on property investments at our webinars. It's all happening at sps2021.99.co. Register now. The Singapore Property Show 2021 is proudly organised by MediaCorp and our esteemed partners.
Look forward to brighter skies. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
So little land with so many mouths to feed.
Land matters. The future is going to be really challenging.
Dan akhirnya dibuang seperti ini dengan mubazir sangat disayangkan sekali. Ini adalah solusinya.
We can turn Singapore into a protein powerhouse overnight, but people don't understand what we're doing.
Women farmers are the solution for the food security.